So we make like 35,000 decisions every single day. And that's why we create habits from the things that we do consistently.
Good habit or bad habit?
Terrible habit, terrible habit. And willpower's like a wave. It sometimes is there and it's sometimes not. And so many things impact our willpower. Our brain's only capable of making up to 3 changes at one time. So, I mean, losing someone is a massive change. It's not just one change. Your entire life is changing. I lost my ex through the trauma.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Good Grief. We are stoked that you're here because you are in for a treat.
Oh, yes. We're about to hit play on part 2 with our friend Dr. Gina. And if you haven't listened to part 1 already, now is your chance.
Yes, we're talking all things habits and grief. So go back and listen to part 1 if you haven't. But if you're here for part 2, welcome.
Ooh.
You're in for just some absolute wisdom, some gold.
Oh, yeah. So much more juice to come.
Plenty of mic drop moments.
Oh, so much. And aha moments.
So,
Buckle up.
yeah, I was going to say, sit down.
Strap in.
Buckle up, strap in. Get yourself a nice tea or a juice and enjoy the episode. And we'll see you on the other side.
Yes, let's go.
So every habit has 3 key ingredients, and it's a trigger, then the habit itself, and then some sort of reward. And the trigger can be, like we were saying before, like the time, the place, your environment. The reward can be anything from, oh, that felt really good. It could be dopamine. It could be comfort in the routine. It could be because I know I should do this and I did and that feels good. So those are that's the ingredients of a habit. What I did is I started off with, okay, I just need to brush my teeth. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a good idea. It's been a few days. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's a good idea to do that. And it was weird because I'm like, oh, where is my toothbrush? And I kind of had to relearn how to do that because, again, that sequence wasn't there for me anymore. And I did that the first day and I was like, all right, job well done, back in bed. And because I made sure that I gave myself that bit of a pep, like, well done, that was the reward for me. And the next morning, I remember getting up and brushing my teeth. And now I was like, that was much easier to do this actually today. And the next day was easier again. By the first few days, I was like, this is now a habit. I'm like, okay, if I can recreate that habit, I've rewired my brain. And that means I have the power to rewire I'm not stuck with this brain. I'm not stuck in this cycle of trauma triggers and, I guess, ruminating. If I can change that, I can totally do this. And I was like, and if I can't, I'm quitting habits.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, what's the point?
Yeah. And I'm not brushing my teeth ever again.
Exactly, because what's the point in that too?
Yeah.
So then I did that, and then I started to shower, and then I'd get dressed, and then I'd spend the first hour in my lounge room rather than in my bedroom. And I just really quick, like slowly, one step at a time, did that. And it sounds easier said than done. Like, the most challenging part of it was the humbling myself to go, yes, before you were this powerhouse, you trained every day, you were powerlifting, doing competitions, and you were running this global business. But now all you need to do is brush your teeth and stand on the veranda, and that's all I want you to do today.
That's job done.
Job done for the day. And it's really hard for a high achiever.
Really hard.
Really hard.
And I know so many of our listeners will be relating to you right now.
But it was the only way, because if I had the goal of going back to what I was, it would be too overwhelming. My brain was only functioning at a fraction of what it could because it was so busy in survival mode.
And did you have the thought that you couldn't go back to what you were because that was 2 people as well? So, like, if that makes sense, like if you went back, because we often have that thought, if only I could go back.
Yeah.
But it's a different time, place, and dynamic.
Probably.
And also for grief, you never, now that grief is with you or trauma, you're never going to be that same person.
Exactly. And it would be super weird. I was like, what music do I even like? And when I'd go to the grocery shops, I'd be like, I remember the first time I went shopping, I put all the stuff in my trolley that he eats. And I'm like, I don't really like this stuff. I'm like, why am I even buying that? And I also bought the same quantities that I would for 2 people. There was so much unlearning and there was grief in every step of that, of realizing, actually, I don't like this song and I don't need 2 packets of wraps and, 100 Wheat Bix. And there was grief in those because I'm like, oh, I only need the little packet and I only need 2 apples. And there was grief in that because it's a difference. It's a change. It's just me now. It reminded me consistently of my loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought there that you said, when you said I don't need 2 packets, you were talking about music, and I thought you meant 2-pack.
Also don't need to.
It's 2-pack, not 2 packets.
How did we get here?
But yeah, I can imagine you'd just be going, I want to listen to different music.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with any other songs that we ever listen to together.
It was like that.
What's a Gina artist?
Oh, I love Teskey Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Love a bit of Beyonce.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyone that can like rock a power ballad, I'm about that.
I think she's coming out soon.
Ooh, goodie.
From what I heard.
There. Yeah, nice.
Anyway.
And the other thing was as well, we lived on acreage, and I needed help. I had no idea how to use the lawnmower, like the ride-on mower. I'd never operated the swimming pool pump. I didn't know anything.
I've never mowed a lawn.
Yeah, and I was like, these
are
trees need chopping down.
Yeah, and these are the same things that happen. So I saw this with my mum. Dad died in the blink of an eye. And then all of these things. How do I do?
Yeah.
He would normally do that.
Yeah.
He took care of that.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
So crazy similarities.
So wild. But I felt empowered in learning it. You know, I remember my beautiful neighbor came over.
Immediately or in time?
Oh, no, in time.
Yes, just want to make
the grass
that
was
clear.
real bad by the time I got to it.
By the time you got out of that 2 months.
Yeah. Because I didn't even notice the grass, right? No,
I'm growing sugarcane.
Yeah,
what about that?
Yeah. No, he came over and he's like, right, every Saturday we're going to learn a new power tool.
That's
He
amazing.
was beautiful.
Oh
and by the end of it, I was like doing the hedges like this, like dancing. I was on the mower, like doing circles. Yeah. I'm the one who does the chainsawing in the property, even now. I love doing that. It is so empowering. And I loved being independent, like learning to be independent again. But that's the physical side, right? I didn't like being independent emotionally, but that was okay in time.
So we've talked about sort of triggering our habits, but what about why we form them?
Yeah, so we make like 35,000 decisions every single day. It's huge. Like even if you think about like when you go to sit down, you just think, I've decided to sit down. But your brain's like, where do I position my feet? Where do I like move my balance to? Do I put my arms down or not to help support me? How high or low is the seat? Like there's hundreds of decisions that we are making just in the one decision we're conscious of to sit down. So if we had to consciously think about all of those decisions, we'd be so exhausted. Like it wouldn't be possible to function. So that's why habits are paramount. They're so important. And it's essentially to preserve brain resources, to preserve our energy so we can do things that aren't habitual or routine. And that's why we create habits from the things that we do consistently. Our brain's like, well, I know that I get up and I check my phone first thing in the morning, and so I'm just going to make that a habit now and I don't have to think about it anymore.
Good habit or bad habit?
Terrible habit. Terrible habit.
Yes.
Especially for the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, can you talk? Can you just talk on that for a second?
So in the first 15 minutes when we wake up is when our brain's like the most creative in our wake state. It's actually still transitioning from a sleep state to a wake state, and it takes that 15 minutes. When we get up and we look at our phone first thing, we're suppressing the creativity, and we're also like bombarding our brain with lots of dopamine, lots of color and sound and news, and we're like having things come in, which actually sets the tone for the rest of the day. So there's research to show if you look at your phone in the first actually half an hour of the day, you're more likely to crave looking at your phone for the rest of the day.
Wow.
Compared to if you just got up and you just like chilled out for 15 minutes, like go outside and look at a tree or something, you're much more calm for the rest of the day.
So can we talk about building that habit? Because I think that could be a huge unlock for everyone listening.
Oh, yeah.
Going through and walking through grief that is so heavy, when sometimes you want distraction or you want that dopamine, but you've just had a poor night's sleep anyway because you're grieving.
Yeah.
You've woken up. How do we build that habit in?
So one of the things that I did is I made sure that my phone was in a different room. And this is the thing with building habits is we can't depend on our self-control or our willpower. There's no point saying, I'll charge my phone next to my bed, but I won't check it. Because especially when you've had a terrible night's sleep or your emotional brain is activated because of grief or because of any other negative emotion, you're going to want to self-indulge. And that's going to be, oh, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start in the new year. I'll do it on Monday.
We've all had those thoughts.
We've all had them with all sorts of habits we want to change. So don't depend on your willpower. It's a fleeting resource, and we don't actually have as much of it as we think we do. And so make it easy, or make it inaccessible, depending if you want to create the habit or break the habit. If you're trying to break the habit of looking at your phone, put it somewhere where you can't access it or it's in a different room. Or create a barrier is essentially what it is. Like you would have to get up out of bed and go to a different room and and that's potentially going to be enough of a barrier. And then you want to replace that with something that you do want to be doing. So if it's like a journal, or if it's a study book, or if it's a book you're reading, have that there so that when you reflexively go to check your phone and it's not there, your book's there. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing now.
It might be the habit revolution that you're just reading instead of looking at your phone.
I mean, of course it would be this.
Yes.
Of course it would be.
Yeah, that's so good. Most people, we were the same. It's like you use your phone as an alarm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I do too. But here's the thing. Here's a double whammy with the positive of charging it in a different room, is that as long as you can hear it, right? When the alarm goes off, you have to get up to turn it off. So now there's no more snoozing, which is one of the most common unwanted habits. So because you have to get up straight away.
There you go.
That was a huge
double trouble.
I don't know if perpetrator's the right word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was.
Oh, were you gonna say
you're getting
snoozing?
busted here.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to tap into some of
Well, I don't actually put my alarm on anymore, so it's you that gets up and then I just have to get up.
That's called a frozen habit. It's when you think it's gone, but actually when the alarm comes back on.
Guys, I'm getting busted live here.
Read the book. It's
That's
in there.
so good.
But no, Ryan did help us by, I think when we got married or soon after, said, I want us to charge our phones in the kitchen.
That was before we got married.
Was it?
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
I knew before I found my wife that I wasn't going to allow phones in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because I wanted my wife to be the last voice that I heard before I went to sleep.
Aww,
you know,
I love that.
and so
and then also we try not to look at it for an hour.
Yes.
In the morning.
In the
hour.
morning.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And you should also do the same before bed. Because of the blue light.
Okay, I'm going to put my hand up.
We're not as
that
good
one's
at that.
harder. That's hard.
It is harder.
Yeah, it is.
It's funny because I did a webinar about this and the questions were, well, what do I do? I'm like, okay,
Yes.
yeah,
Let's
get
go back
really practical.
30
about
years
this.
before there were phones.
Exactly. You have to find things. So for me, I do breath work.
Oh, they mean, what do I do instead of looking at my phone?
instead of looking at my phone.
Oh, wow.
Like I actually have to find something to do. So I love reading. I love like Francine Rivers, my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And I have like a no blue light reading light. So I do that and then I'll do breath work before bed. And I will just like make a ritual of going to bed. Have a shower, floss, brush, put my serum on, and I just do it nice and slowly. And that pace has done wonders for my sleep. Yeah.
All right.
So good.
I'm taking notes. Yep, that one's on my list.
You're going to get a serum?
You
have to get the serum. It's part of the ritual.
You didn't even know. I was like, what?
Yeah, I don't know what you girls are talking about.
He's like, what's a serum?
Is that a sleep serum? I'm in. I'll take it.
I love it. Much to learn, baby.
You mentioned brain power and willpower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Break that down for us, because I think we've all set goals, ambitions. We've tried to install habits and failed miserably. What's the difference? How do we focus on one?
So willpower is, I guess, it's our self-control. It's like the effort that we put into something to achieve it. And willpower's like a wave. It sometimes is there and it's sometimes not. And so many things impact our willpower, like so many things. It can literally be like driving through traffic, screaming children, negative emotions, loss and grief, of course, being hungry, poor night's sleep, making lots and lots of decisions, taking initiative. All these things actually reduce our self-control. And the only way to replenish it is by resting. It's meditation, it's sleep, it's rest, it's having something to eat. And so we can't depend on our willpower because it's like going like this all day long, just like up and down all the time. Whereas our brain power is our neuroplasticity. It's how our brain is wired. It's our habits. So no matter how tired you are or how down you are, you will always put your seatbelt on in the car because it's a habit. That's your brain power. And that's living a life filled with positive habits, is that no matter what's going on in your world, you can still have foundational habits, or at least rebuild them again, so that you're not using your willpower to do them. And the way that we use brain power is through neuroplasticity, which is essentially the rewiring of our brain. So when I was brushing my teeth, like when I started my new routines, that was creating these neural pathways. And neuroplasticity happens when so the saying is that cells that fire together wire together. So morning routine and brushing teeth, if you do that at the same time, then a link is actually created between morning and brushing teeth. And that link strengthens every time you do that routine, which is how neuroplasticity works and how we can rewire our brain.
And that can work for us or against us, right?
Yeah, depending on the habit.
Yeah. As you're just sharing, I'm kind of just ticking off these things going, oh, wow, yeah, putting on a seatbelt every day. You don't even think about that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it would have been great in my like deep grief to have realized how many habits that were good for me that I did have.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if people listening are finding that helpful, like, oh yeah, I do brush my teeth.
Yeah.
You know, every day, put my seatbelt on.
I do still do that. Yeah.
And I've got a little question. I'm thinking, and I'm wondering at the same time, is it any positive to us to mix up our routine?
Yeah, big time actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, there is. We can be too habitual because so when we're in autopilot, our brain is not really being stimulated or activated. We're not learning anything new. We're not experiencing anything new, and it can be quite mundane. So there's an intervention actually. There's a chapter called Do Something Different, and it's all about this. It's subtly reorganizing our routines so that we can do something different, because that's actually where life is lived. And it's really good, especially when we're going through grief, to do something different, because it gets us out of our heads, out of the routines. Because when you're doing something new, you have to think about it.
Yeah, so I was just going to say
you have to experience it.
You're
and it doesn't have attachments.
Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't have attachments yet. So you get to rewrite it.
That's
whatever story you want to attach to it, you can. So I actually implemented like this intervention with some study participants. It was so fun. I would send them a random text message on random times of the day on random days to do random things. And I'm like talking super random. It would be like, listen to a different radio station today, or write a short story, or send a letter to a long lost friend.
That's great.
And it would just happen randomly, and they just had to do it, right? And we found that those people actually had increased their sense of well-being. They reduced their depression and anxiety. They discovered music they'd never known about before. Some of them found their lifelong partners because they went to places they'd never been before. And it was beautiful. And I still do that. Like, I'll drive to the gym going a different way just to notice a flower I hadn't noticed before.
I think that's a great one. Going a different way to somewhere.
Yeah. Or going to a different supermarket. Like, either little things that we do every day. It's like, just try something different. It might not even be as good, or it might be further or more inconvenient, but there's still benefit in it.
Kaylee goes into every supermarket. So like literally she shops in like the big four.
Oh, really?
And then not just in one location. So she's got that covered.
Like, it must take you the entire day
today, guys.
Does it take you the whole day to go grocery shopping? My goodness.
I'm grateful for it. But yeah.
No, it doesn't, because I've got it down to an art.
Do you
there's
have
a song about
special
that.
things that you like at special shops?
Yeah.
Okay.
But also I like to look at specials, and this shop has some things I like and some things I don't.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes there's points,
So
extra points with do you want to shop here or there? Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
I was also going to give a shout out to our singles who might be on a dating site or something, when maybe all they need to do is go to a different place, a different restaurant, different supermarket. They might find that person.
It's true.
We've become a dating podcast now. Love it. We're covering all bases. Serums, dating. All right. So talk to us about lasting change, because, what are we? What's the date? It's like January 5th.
Mm-hmm.
It's the New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard time for people grieving as well.
Yeah.
And so I think if we think pre-grief, we've all set New Year's resolutions. You think, your loved one dies and you're like, well, there's no point in anything. How do we create lasting change through some of these habits?
92% of the habits that we set out to achieve, we end up forgetting about, which is a huge number. And that includes resolutions. There's a few key reasons for that, and I love talking about it in the book because I think it's going to be so helpful for people. And one of the biggest reasons is that we try to set too many goals, and the other one is that our goals are too big. We're way too ambitious when we're setting them. So too many goals. Our brain's only capable of making up to 3 changes at one time.
That's great.
Wow.
Up to 3 changes. So, I mean, losing someone is a massive change.
Changes
it's not
everything.
just one change. Your entire life is changing. I wouldn't be setting out to create new habits in a time like that unless they're just habits to get your life back together again, or to improve your current routine. I wouldn't be setting out I'm going to run a marathon, like not the right time.
Yeah.
The other thing is that when our goals are too big. So, okay, yesterday, for example, I did this I did 2 gym classes back to back because I'd already booked in for Pilates.
Because you're a powerhouse.
No, it's so funny. I booked in for Pilates and I accidentally booked in for the another class before it, not Pilates, like a different class. And at this gym I go to, if you don't go to a class that you've booked in for and you don't cancel it within 2 hours, you've got to pay $10 for it. And like $10 is not a lot of money, but I was like,
I'm going to that class.
I was like, I'm gonna go to that class, right? And then I had planned on going to the gym this morning and like doing some heavy deadlifts. And I woke up sore, right? Like I'd done 2 hours of training yesterday, and silly me, like I still have to pull myself back and go, Gina, you need a rest day. Like it's okay. So when our goals are too big or too ambitious or too lofty, our brain actually goes into a state of what's called hyperarousal, and it's a fight or flight mode, where we procrastinate, we don't want to do it. It's kind of like going up against Serena Williams in a tennis match. You're like, well, I don't want to do this. Like you want to give up before you've even started. That's what happens when our goals are too big.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons we don't sustain our habits. The other reason is that we've bought into the myth that it takes only 21 days to change a habit.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Not true.
Yeah.
Not true.
There's no evidence that's ever shown that. That was like some myth that's just gone
Such
down.
a great wives' tale.
Yeah, totally. It actually takes about 10 weeks on average to create a new habit. Now, really easy habits will take you maybe 3 weeks, but really, really hard habits, like complex habits, will take you a lot longer to actually be completely habitual. It took me 2 years to refine the deadlift because there's so many like different mechanics in your body that you have to focus on. Whereas if you were to say to me, I want you to drink a glass of water every morning before breakfast, easy. I could do that in 3 weeks and make it habitual.
It's cool to define those two.
Yeah.
So you did your toothbrush in like 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a frozen habit. Like it came back because I'd done it before. So in terms of consistency, we actually want to focus on consistency, not intensity. And we want to keep going. It's like there are going to be days, like creating habits is a process of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That step back is part of the process. And instead of getting down on ourselves like, oh, I forgot it again, it's like, no, it's part of the process. Get up, keep going. Every time you practice your new habit, you're actually reinforcing that neural pathway in your brain. You're making it stronger. So just keep going.
That's great to understand for the high achievers that 2 steps forward, 1 step back is part of the process.
It's part of it.
And I mean, I saw it may have been this morning on Instagram. Instagram's full of good stuff if you're following the right stuff. And I don't know how factual, but there was a study done and just about reading the Bible and doing that daily. In the first 1 to 3 days, there didn't seem much change, but on day 4, they started seeing change. And I was all over this. I'm like, this is amazing because even if the study is incorrect, if true, can be a good thing. I don't know if you agree or not.
Change in what? Like what was changing?
Yeah, so loneliness dropped by about 30%.
Wow.
Anger dropped by 43%.
Wow.
Bitterness dropped in the 30 or 40% as well. Alcoholism dropped.
That's incredible.
And pornography dropped.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was
amazing.
after day 4.
Yeah.
And so I just thought how timely to see that today.
Totally. Yeah.
On this topic.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I guess, and the more you do it, the more habitual those things get, and then the more benefits you get from it. And it's the same thing with breaking old habits. Like the less you do it, the less habitual it gets. So don't think that, you know, just because you did your unwanted habit one time less in a week, that it's not going to make a difference. It is, because you're making that neural pathway just that tiny bit weaker. And it's going to help you break it when you do it even less and less.
So let's tap into bad habits.
Okay.
Do you call them bad habits, poor habits?
I call them unwanted habits only because it's really hard to define a bad habit, because what a bad habit is for one person could be great for someone else. It all depends on the context. But we can use bad habits if that's the word you want to fly with.
Because we thought for a second that you were the co-writer of Ed Sheeran's song,
Yeah.
Bad Habits. Bad habits lead to late nights. Like,
No.
Gina's got to be on that song.
Yeah, totally.
We should do a collab for sure.
Yeah. We'll get Ed to
Ed.
contact you.
Ed, when you listen to this, just reach out via email.
Yeah,
We'll connect you with Dr. Gina. It's all over. You guys will take over. Okay, so we can call them bad habits?
Yeah, you can call them bad habits, yeah.
So what are some common ones?
The most common ones are scrolling on our phone too much,
Ooh.
staying up too late, snoozing in the morning too long, snacking when we're not hungry, and procrastinating.
Okay, so there was about 3 or 4 on there that I ticked off for myself.
I reckon scrolling for you, because how many times you've referenced Instagram.
Yeah. And tricky because of the nature of good
work.
grief
Yeah.
and the work.
Yeah.
On there.
Totally.
But there's a difference as well between,
Yes.
so what I do with my work is I will have my social media on my work computer. I don't scroll on my phone ever, because I don't want that association. I don't want it to be, oh, I'm bored and then I pick up my phone and scroll. Like that association's not there for me. So if I'm, say, on social media, I'm actually on my work computer and I've posted something or I'm responding and I'm out. Like I don't even scroll. I've never scrolled.
You're my hero, Gina.
Wait, not never. I haven't scrolled for years because I never felt good after it. It always felt like a void in my day. Yeah, but I'm super geek, right? Like I'm like, oh, there's a new study. I can't wait to, read this journal article. That's what I do.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, huge. It's the biggest thing in our generation.
The number one unwanted habit. Yeah. And interestingly, it's becoming so in older generations too. It was sort of just started with millennials and now it's actually across all the ages.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can see it from our demographics in our data, 45 to 65, like a huge portion of people. We love you. Thank you for scrolling.
Keep scrolling on good grief.
Yeah.
Different though when you're seeing supportive, good for the soul content.
And if you're on there intentionally, like if you say to yourself, I'm going to jump online and I'm going to scroll for 10 minutes. Yeah. Awesome. Like do it guilt-free. Enjoy it, savor it.
It's the doom scroll.
It's the doom scroll, or when you're super mindless or reflexive. That's what
Can you explain reflexive?
Reflexive. Okay. So say you're at your desk doing work and you get a difficult email or you're stuck on a word. You're going to want to procrastinate and avoid that. And how easy when your phone's in reach to just grab it and make that your procrastination tool. So reflexive is when you can access something easily and it's what you do to avoid something. It's a reflex.
Someone throws a ball at you, you'll swat that away.
Yeah. So whenever I'm scrolling, I'm intentional about it. I'm not just doing it like emotionally or impulsively in the moment because I don't want to do what else I'm doing. It's like, no. I have to just face this email, or I just have to have this difficult conversation or get through this hard emotion. And on the other end, it'll be better, but getting on my phone it's just prolonging the process. Yeah.
Ooh. Feel like we could go so deep on the social media, but that's all right. I think there's enough there for us to go, all right, we need to think about the way that we're using our devices, especially through grief.
Totally.
When you're trying to escape.
Yes, totally.
Would you have some ideas that helped you of just escaping? Like, did you use anything that just gave you dopamine when you needed it?
I became very hypervigilant. I read a lot of books. I listened to all the podcasts because I felt like I was drowning in a well of unknown and I wanted some kind of coherence or some kind of familiarity or understanding. I read a lot of books about trauma and about betrayal trauma, especially, just to feel seen and feel supported. So that helped me a lot. Spending time with friends, even though I didn't want to do it because I felt like I was being such a downer.
We can all relate
me.
to that.
Yeah.
I remember you went on a trip, didn't you?
I did. My friends, so actually 2 of our couple friends and my ex and I had already planned to go on this boat trip together.
Oh.
And it was 2 weeks.
I thought they had like scooped you up and gone, Gina, come away with us.
Well, I had said to them, guys, I can't come. You know, I don't want to bring myself as I am to the boat. I'm really not going to have a good time. I know I'm not going to be able to contribute to like the operations because my mind's just not here, not sharp at all. And if I'm triggered and I'm having a panic attack in the ocean, like I don't know who's going to help me. And they were like, you're coming. Like, we'll look after you. Don't be ridiculous.
Whoa.
They're like my lifelong friends, right? So I did that and it was amazing because they allowed me to grieve in the ways that I needed, but they also pulled me out of it when I was going too long. So I had my own room on the boat and I'd say, I just need some Gina time. And they're like, they give me a box of tissues and they're like, off you go. And in an hour, I would have someone being like, all right, it's time to come back up. We're going for a swim. And pulling me out of it forced my brain to stop stop wallowing in the rumination and just experience a moment of joy. And it was so important to do that. Yeah. I wouldn't have gone if they hadn't forced me, but I'm so glad they did.
Yeah, that's huge.
Highly recommend it.
I was watching it just going, oh, that would be so good for you.
Yeah. And to have friends that just, they're okay with whatever state you're in. It's like you can be however you need to be. You don't need to be happy.
It's the perfect response.
It was beautiful. Just what I needed.
And thank you for bringing
Yeah.
up the joy. Like we've recently spoken about that on one of our podcasts and just looking for the joy and finding something that will bring you joy amongst the grief, because the grief can be so all-consuming. It is so important to find your joy through this, because
without feeling guilt for the joy, because 100%. There was those moments like I shouldn't be laughing, or how can I be having such a good time when he's not here? There was a lot of that happened.
And I know that they are just resonating with those exact words. Like, we all have felt that. Yeah.
Hey, we've got some crew that have written in with some questions.
Cool.
Can we dive into some of those?
Yeah, let's do it. Fun.
So thanks for everyone writing in. We love hearing from you, and cool that you get a shout out and Gina's going to answer your question. It's pretty amazing. This one's from Patricia, and she said, how do I break the bad habit of smoking far too much? Because I'm suffering grief and I promised I'd go off them, but I can't get it out of my head because it was something I used to do with my mum, was have a cup of tea and smoke. It's a hard, bad habit. Any tips would be helpful.
Oh, Patricia, thank you for your question. I can totally appreciate why you would want to continue to smoke, because it would remind you of your mum. Like, it's the thing that you guys did together. So of course it would help you to feel bonded. But also in that moment, you're playing out a routine that you did with your mum. So there's a sense of a comfort in that normality that you would have experienced. I think it would be really helpful to find something else that you did with your mum. So you mentioned having a cup of tea. Can it just be the cup of tea where you just honor that ritual for itself? And you might want to do it in a different spot. So instead of where you normally sit and have a cup of tea and have a cigarette, because that triggers there, I would actually sit in a different location when you have your cup of tea, so that environmental trigger isn't as strong for the cigarette. And then you might want to do something when you're having that cup of tea to help you remember your mum in some way, so that there's not that void there of mum represents the cigarette, or the cigarette represents my time with mum. And now that the cigarette's not there, there's going to be a void. So you want to fill that with something else that you and your mum may have done together or said together or watched together, and just do that for a while until you can really unlearn that routine. One thing to know with, things like smoking or phone scrolling or sugar is they give us dopamine, right? And dopamine makes us feel good. So it's okay for you to, I think it's completely normal for us to fall into these patterns even more when we're grieving, because our brain's like, yo, I just want to feel good. Like I feel lousy right now. So these quick fixes are really tempting and they're really easy to fall into. But just know that what happens long term is that one cigarette is then not enough. And your brain's like, well, I need more dopamine now, because we develop a tolerance for it. And you're going to need, 40 cigarettes or more. There's never enough for the brain. So it's actually causing harm long term. And quick fixes as well with dopamine make us feel even worse after. So dopamine rises and then it falls below baseline, which means below where you were before you had the cigarette, and you feel even worse, which is why you want another one and then another one and then another one. So you just want to go through the grind. It's difficult. I'm not going to even sugarcoat it. Change sucks. Our brains don't like it. But once you get through those first few days, which are the most challenging, it gets easier and easier, and then your neuroplasticity kicks in. And it makes it even easier for you. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You made me think, like, you gave permission then, or validation, that it's okay to take some of that dopamine up.
Yeah.
It made me think of my friend's family. So my friend died, and his family were pastors, and they shot off to Hawaii, and they just said they had the wildest time in Hawaii, and at the time I hadn't lost anybody like that close before, and I'm going, what, you guys went and got drunk, and you're pastors, and my whole worldview was kind of like all shaken up. But just hearing you say that, it's like, that's not who they are. They didn't turn into alcoholics, but they just allowed themselves some space just to let go.
And I think it's totally okay to do whatever you need to do to survive, whatever you need to do to get through that period, no matter how unhealthy it is for you. You're surviving, and it's okay. Like, just know that it won't be like this forever.
As long as it's like safe for you and safe for others,
of course. You're not like self-harming.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and you're not letting yourself get carried away with it. Like you're not like, it's been months and you're still doing this.
Sure.
You need to know that you can pull yourself out of it. Yeah.
Next question's from Paula. And Paula asks, how do I break the habit of eating and drinking sugary and carb-loaded foods? And I'll just add as a caveat, this had 5 likes on it. So quite a few people are wanting an answer to this one.
Yeah. Paula, it's really similar to, what I was mentioning before. Sugar gives us dopamine, a really big and quick hit of dopamine. So it's completely natural to want that. And also when we're grieving, we're generally not sleeping as well, and our mood is lower, and sugar pipes us up. And so it's actually normal to crave sugar in those periods of time. But again, sugar spikes up our blood sugar levels and our dopamine, and it crashes us again, which is why we want to reach for more, because in that crash, we feel lousy and we want up again. And so we want to reach for another Tim Tam or another whatever it might be. So just know that when you have that bit of sugar, although it'll make you feel good in the moment, 10 minutes later, it'll make you feel even worse. So I would stop and assess. I'm going to feel even worse after this. Is it worth it? Sometimes you'll say, yeah, you know what, it's worth it. And other times you'll be like, no, it's really not worth it. And then you've got to replace it with something else. So if you're craving that sugar hit at the time, you want to maybe start with reducing how much you're having, and then, or reducing how often, like the frequency of having it in each day, and then gradually reduce that. But you want to distract yourself too. So if you're craving sugar, do not stand in front of your pantry and be like, these Tim Tams are dead to me. Like, don't do that.
Affirmations.
Yeah,
for
don't.
Tim Tams.
Yeah, don't do it.
This will work.
And for our North Americans and friends around the world who don't know what Tim Tams are,
Yeah, I love it.
they're the best
biscuits.
It's our
chocolate
famous
biscuit.
chocolate biscuit in
Yeah.
Australia.
Google them and order some from Amazon or somewhere.
Yeah.
Get your favorite Aussie friend to bring you some.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to change the environment. Stand outside or call a friend, or you also want to put those foods in an inconvenient location. So a client I worked with, she put all her Tim Tams in a hard to reach shelf in the garage. She did that same with wine bottles, and she had to get a step ladder to be able to access them. And she's like, it was so annoying. It was such a barrier having to go into my hot garage and go up and step ladder and get, so I just didn't do it.
That's great.
Awesome. Just don't have them in your house for a while. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. There's so much in that. Our secret sweet shelf is pretty high
It is hard.
for you as
is it very secretive though? If you both
it's
know
just
about
up
it.
there. No.
It's just the top shelf
Yeah,
of the pantry.
secretive is the wrong word,
It's just the
Gina.
best spot for things, and also so that when nieces and nephews are here and you open the pantry, they don't just go,
Okay,
chocolate!
secret for them.
Yeah.
Got it. Love it.
In context.
I know you'll reach it though, Ryan. Can you reach it?
I can reach
Yeah,
it.
Okay,
Kelly can
Yeah, I
reach
can't
it.
see what's in
I'll tell you
it.
what's
I can
harder
just
for her
read
to reach is like the medicine cabinet with
Oh,
like
yeah.
the Panadol and the different stuff. Like
still reach it.
Yeah,
I
it's
just have
just
to get on my
harder.
tippy toes.
we got things out of whack in this house. We're just
It's
we're
cool.
saying.
It's cool.
Okay, cool. So there's been a couple that I think that answer will have helped in regards to how do I break my junk food habit.
Yeah.
The same applies.
Same. Yeah.
From Sonia, and this is a little bit different. Sonia asked, how does my mind get over losing my father? And also related to another question we had here in terms of the difference between healthy grief habits and unhealthy ones, i.e. reliving their death.
Okay.
So that thought of like, how do I relieve my mind of just consciously thinking about my dad?
Yeah. Okay. I think the words getting over the loss of your dad, I don't think we ever get over. I think the grief is always there, but we sort of grow around it and we learn. Like for me, the grief for my loss and the betrayal that I experienced is still there. And when I get triggers, although I'm not escalated through it now, there's still a moment of sadness that I work through because there was a life I lived with someone for many years, and that life represents a lot of pain now. You know, there were childbearing years through that. I lost my eggs through the trauma. So there was a lot of things through that were challenging. But now there's a lot less emotion attached to that grief. It's sad, but it's not going to derail my day like it used to before. I think in terms of changing like thought habits or, you know, going back to those moments, like reliving death, the research shows that that's not a good idea to do because as you relive a traumatic event, there's no benefit in going back and doing that again unless you're trying to feel the emotion that you haven't let yourself feel before.
Like the exposure therapy.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas if you're just experiencing the grief side of it and not pushing through any other thing with that, then it's just grief for what it is. And then there's nothing that comes out of that. So it's actually a really good idea to experience it deeply and then move on from it and then focus on other things. And it's a shift that you have to be very intentional about. Because like I was saying, our thoughts are also habitual. So you have to actually rewire your brain to think differently about things. And that's what happens when things trigger you less. It's like this used to trigger this and now it doesn't because I've rewired my thoughts about it. I've rewired my reactions towards it. And you can do that with all your thoughts as well. And it's just about, okay, when I think of my parents that I lost, I'm going to think about how freaking grateful I am to have an opportunity to have loved someone so deeply. Now, I say that having not lost a parent. So someone could, like, you guys could be like, I'm going to slap this woman. She doesn't really know what that's like.
That.
That's how we've gotten through it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And have you lost anyone? I can't remember.
My grandparents were the closest people to me. Like, they were closer to me than my parents, and I've lost my grandparents. Yeah. And it was also challenging because I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. So the way that I had to sort of experience that was really lonely.
Terrible, yeah.
Yeah, because I was quite young and my parents were trying to protect me, but it was hard for many reasons like that as well.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of our audience have felt that their grandparents were actually closer than parents.
Yeah.
And so that's massive.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful.
You know what's interesting with that now as well, like ever since having the separation, I've thought so much more about, I don't know how I'm going to go when I lose my dog or when I lose a parent, because I've experienced grief so deeply or experienced it deeply than I had ever experienced it before. I'm like, I never want to do that again.
Seriously.
And now it's like, it almost like when I'm loving on Macy, like I'll like get my head in her and like smooch her all over. There's a part of me that's like, don't love too hard because one day she won't be there. And I have to go, no, like I have to enjoy the moment while I have her, and it's okay to pull myself and all of that. But it changes the way you think about things, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because
and
loss is so real now.
Totally. And it's a balance. It's like a seesaw. The more that we love, the greater the grief.
Totally.
And so for those just going through the pits of grief right now, it's because you loved so deeply.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing. It's unfortunately
something that many people don't experience. It's
right.
an honor to have that, but hard to also
I think
come
also
around that.
Yeah, we know with age, time ticks away and gets us closer to the next grief.
Yeah.
Which is hard to think about.
Yeah.
It's very
but
hard.
it's our reality. It's how our world works.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, final question. I think this one's from Ashley. She said, is it healthy if you see yourself in a deep grief pattern to consciously try and pull yourself out of that? Or is it better to just let yourself be and feel the emotions? I understand the importance of feeling the pain being the only way to heal from it. However, sometimes it feels exhausting and I'm tired feeling that way.
Great question, Ashley. The research again shows that it's not a good idea to be in a routine of grief, and actually allowing yourself to think about other things or pull yourself out of that is going to benefit your mind and your overall well-being much more. There's sometimes resistance to that though, because we feel guilty. We might feel guilty for not grieving or not grieving again when it doesn't serve us at all. It doesn't serve the person or the thing we've lost, and it serves no purpose other than the first time you experience it deeply. So actually pulling yourself out of it is a really good idea, and you want to be very intentional about doing things that bring you joy, whatever it might be. Get out in nature, be with someone else. Like, I think being in an environment with other people can really pull you out of your own head, because you have to. But is actually, the research shows, even doing like a yoga class or a boxing or whatever, in that moment, you allow yourself a space where you're thinking something positive, you're feeling positive, and it gives your brain a break.
Yeah, massive.
And like you said in the question, it's exhausting. Grief is exhausting. It actually uses so much brain power. No, we are so much more exhausted when we're in a state of grief.
We're already making normal decisions.
Yeah.
10x now.
Yeah. And it's very fatiguing. And so no wonder we have no self-control or willpower, or we just want to eat sugar or smoke cigarettes or watch TV or scroll on our phone, because we don't have that oomph to do anything else. So I think we need to be really kind to ourselves and try to fill our cups as much as we can.
So relieving hearing that. Like, and it's something that I've heard many times, but every time it's just like, oh, that's right. I can be okay knowing that this isn't a forever time. I'm going to be fatigued. I'm going to eat the wrong things or watch things or whatever.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
No, it's okay. I remember going to my psychologist like a year after my separation, being like, where's my resilience? Like, why can't I just get the same work day done that I used to before? I've done all the exposure therapy. I'm fine. I can like walk through a crowd and not even stress out.
And what was the face of your psychologist like?
She was like, oh, girl, you are so the worried well. Like, that's what she called me.
The worried well.
She's probably like, get out of my office and bring someone who actually needs help. No, but you know, I was obviously able to understand how much our brain still ticks over and how much triggers can impact us. And there's bouts, right? Like, you might not feel grief for a long time, and then something happens like Christmas and you're just like, I'm straight back in it again. And that takes time to come out of that state, and that's okay. And I think that's why it's so important to notice our capacity when we're trying to achieve goals. Like, it's not always the right time. It's okay to pause and come back to it. Like, we can't just push through things and then burn ourselves out, or try to focus on something when it's not going to be consistent because of how you are.
Yeah. Final few things maybe before we wrap.
Yeah.
I'd love to know from your faith, you know, you're a believer as well.
Yeah.
How did that impact you at the time? Did you lean in? Did you lean away?
I had to lean in because it was either lean in or give up. I was at a state where I was like, God, like, God is the only power I have now, because I've got nothing. So I leaned in more in a way where I was like, okay, if my husband isn't here, God, I'm gonna need you around like all the time. And I felt his presence in such a beautiful way of many things, like my friends taking me away, or my best friend coming and staying with me, or the sunrise that I would notice that I hadn't noticed before that would just give me a twinkle of joy. And the way the timing things work, I was able to take work off for months, and I was so blessed to be able to do that. It was like the steps had been planned for me, and I was walking in them, and I felt so protected and so guided.
Yeah.
And although it was the worst time of my life, I knew I'd be okay long term, even though like logically or emotionally I didn't believe that. Logically, I knew I'd be okay, because how can I not be? Like, I have the greatest power holding my hand through it.
It's so good.
Yeah. So I leaned in that way. I struggled to go to church at the time because being around like, how's your day been kind of people was like, no, please don't talk to me.
You don't want the real answer.
I
it's
know.
like, we don't have time. You don't want it. Trust me. Don't ask. Yeah.
Cracking a smile was hard enough. So I would self-serve at the supermarket. Like, I didn't want human interaction a lot of the time. It was exhausting. And I didn't trust anyone. So I was like, you could be a serial killer.
Yes.
I don't know what you really do at night. Like, so.
Yeah, you just told me that was $63, but it's probably only $43.
Exactly. Show me the tag. Like,
you're taking my money.
Totally. So I leaned in.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
And then tell us, where are you at? Where's Gina at now in life?
I'm remarried.
Yeah, I want to close that loop.
Oh my goodness.
Want to let everyone know
Amen.
there's a happy ending
There
here.
is. Never, ever did I think I could be vulnerable and trust another human being.
That
ever.
is huge.
And even on my first date with Mitch, I was like, listen, honey, I got some baggage
This is
going
my
on
story.
here. Yeah, so he actually, like some people will be like, so what do you do for work? Or do you have any siblings? Like, typical first date stories. Mitch was like, what's the most traumatic thing you've been through, and how did you get
Are you
through
serious?
it?
That's the question you asked?
He literally asked that. I'm
Bro.
like, well, you might want to sit down. Like, it wasn't that long ago, actually.
Sorry,
Yeah.
how long you planned for this date?
Yeah. But I was so open with him because I was like, look, if you can't handle that, it's fine.
Totally.
I can't change it. This is part of me now. And whoever I'm with, I can do all the healing I can do by myself. But I'm going to have to go through the whole thing again when I'm with someone, because now I've got something to lose. Now I've got someone to be suspicious about. When you've got your phone in your hand, my mind is going to tell me that you're doing something other than what you're probably doing. And I'm going to have to go through all of that again. And he was just like, yeah, I reckon I can probably deal with that. Like, he was just so cool, chill about it. Totally right. And it took a while. Like, we started couples therapy really early on because I knew it was a journey that I needed a third voice in.
That's so good.
I was like, this guy could be gaslighting me. He could be saying, I'm not doing that. And I can't trust myself. So I need someone to be like, well, it's completely normal for someone to, be late from work or look at their phone or
have to go to Bunnings or the
or
supermarket.
have friends.
Oh my goodness. So the first time he went to Bunnings, I can.
Okay.
It's exposure therapy. But the first time Mitch went to Bunnings, I was like, why am I getting anxious? I had forgotten, right?
Yeah, right.
I was like, something's wrong. Like, I'm struggling to breathe here.
Whoa.
And he called me and he's like, hey, babe, I just wanted you to know, maybe we'll just like chat on the phone while I'm here at Bunnings. And I was like, what? And I could, like, someone then spoke on the speaker and I was like, oh, he really is that. But it was like aisle 3 for tools and hardware or something.
That's awesome.
I'm like, oh, he really is there. And he's like, let's just stay on the phone. And he just helped me get through that.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. So it's been a partnership through the healing together. And it's taken a very special human being to help me through it, because I have to be really careful to not project my trauma on him. But I also need him sometimes to help me
you
through
with it. Totally.
So I've had to change my language. I had to express to him the way I'd say it is, the story in my head, the story I'm telling myself right now is this. And that's all on me then, right? It has nothing to do with him.
That's what you said to yourself or you said to him?
I'd say to him, the story I'm telling myself is,
and that allows
you're looking at this on your phone.
Yeah. And that allows him to then give his side or the facts, present the facts. I think that there is a golden nugget for so many listening.
The reassurance. Yeah. And I would say, I'm so sorry I need reassurance. It's not you. It's my own heart that I'm still piecing together and trying to regain trust in myself again. And I've regained trust in myself because I've noticed my instincts were always right. I just didn't want to believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really helpful. But also we have an incredibly connected relationship. And when things don't feel connected, we both acknowledge it. So there's no sort of smokes and mirrors in it. I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum, which I tell him all the time, like not even like rude.
We all are. Like
all of us are.
We all
but he's
are.
so brutally honest. I mean, who asked that on a first date?
Yeah.
So Mitch is so happy to be like,
that.
I don't like that. Yeah, I don't really think this is a good idea, or nah, I don't really want to go see your friends, or like he's so honest, and so nothing is hidden.
Did you ever ask him what was up with that first question?
It's such when you meet him,
It was meant to be
such
though,
a
that
normal
question
thing.
to have that.
Totally. It was really good. That's just such a normal conversation for him. Yeah, and he'd be like, "So what lessons did you get out of it?" Like he's just so upfront.
So we'll find out if we have pizza with them or not.
Yes.
If we don't, it's because Mitch didn't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your friends.
And I would just be like, "Yo, Mitch is not keen."
Oh, that's amazing. So stoked. I can't wait to meet Mitch.
He'll be keen though.
Yeah.
I know he'll want to meet you guys.
Really happy to see you healthy.
Thank you.
Happy, full of joy, and just such a shining testament of like what a woman can walk through and end out this side where you are now, and just helping so many people.
Thank you guys. But actually, to wrap that part up, the other day I saw my ex for the first time since we'd separated, like I saw him at the tennis.
Whoa.
And I had preempted sort of the day.
Bumping into? Like it was a bumping into, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, the whole day I was like, I'm getting this weird feeling. I'm going to see him. Like it's super weird. I don't know why I'm feeling that. Like I don't even think about him anymore. Like why is this here? Bumped into him. And it was magical in a way where I was like, I don't feel anything.
You're like, I'm good.
I'm so good. And I had the best night knowing that I was totally over it. It was awesome. Now, I was with Mitch, which helped because he was a real support person. He was with friends, but I think he's single, which probably helped too, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know how he still has friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was amazing to be like, oh, I really have done a lot of work, and I really am good. Yeah, I'm not drawn back into you and the manipulation and the love I felt for you. It's not there like that anymore, and it was awesome.
Oh,
Were there words exchanged, or was it just like?
No, it wasn't even eyes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were actually at a concert, and he sat behind me the whole time.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
I thought you were at the tennis.
No, that was the last time she saw him.
Yeah.
Whoa.
This was just recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're at a concert.
Whoa.
And yeah, he sat behind me the whole time. And Mitch and I had the best time. We were like, la, la.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Who'd you see?
But it was Teskey Brothers.
Okay, okay. So good.
But it was really cool because it was just, I don't think you know those things until you experience them. And,
Fully.
There's, oh yeah, I'm sweet and I'm fine, until you hit a trigger and you're like, oh, actually, I've got a little bit more work to do. But to go through the ultimate trigger and to come out unscathed, I was like, we really do have the power to completely rewire our brains. Like, that's amazing. To go from someone who's getting panic attacks at the thought or a memory of this person, and then to be sitting right in front of them for hours and not feel anything. The power in that in 3 years is honestly like, we are not stuck with our brain. And that's what I've loved about that experience.
We are not stuck with our brain.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Dr. Gina, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Pleasure, guys.
This has been our pleasure.
Yeah, totally. And just grab the book again.
Yes.
Go grab The Habit Revolution. And where can people hang out and find you?
I'm on Instagram, Dr Gina Cleo. And if you jump on my website, drginacleo.com, there's a bunch of resources on there for free. So there's a free habit masterclass on there. There's a bunch of podcasts like this one, which I'll put up on there, and articles and habit trackers and all sorts of fun tools. Wow. So yeah, jump on. I message everyone back. I don't have, people who do my messaging for me. So I love connecting with people. And yeah, so jump on.
That's how I know you. And where can they buy your book?
Literally any store. It's in America, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and it will be in China soon. Yeah, translated. I won't know what it will say, but
That's
hopefully it's the
amazing.
same thing.
The lawyers will take care of that.
Yeah,
won't they?
exactly. Yeah. So, but if you literally just Google it, it's also on Audible if you're an audiobook person.
And
I
Is it on
narrated
Amazon?
it myself.
And you narrated it,
Yes,
yeah.
that was
That's the best thing about Audibles.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wouldn't have had it any other way. So, but if you jump on my website and go to book, I've got a list of places there where you can buy it from.
Yeah, we'll put your website and Insta all below.
Awesome.
So everyone can check that out.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
It's been a blessing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Go
for
get
having
yourself
me.
the habit revolution.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging out. And if this has been helpful, share it with somebody else as well.
Yes, please share. We can't do this without you.
Big love from us.
Love you
Bye
guys.
for now.